that we all know what an affirmation is. If you've ever read a self-help book, you know an affirmation is a statement of something you want to be true. So like when I'm doing my keynote speeches, whether they're colleges or universities or Fortune 500 companies, I always like to have my audiences stand up and say, and I say to them, all right, we're going to do an affirmation like the gurus teach us. And they say to say these statements like, I am rich. So everybody say, I am rich. Everybody goes, I am rich. You know what happens next? Everybody starts laughing. And I go, well, what are you laughing at? And they say, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. See, now that's the problem, right? Isn't that the problem with the traditional affirmations method? We say these statements, but really our brain doesn't believe it. And so we're just fighting our own beliefs. We're fighting our own brain. And so what they said was, well, listen, if you don't believe your affirmation, just repeat it 1,000 million billion cajillion times until you believe it someday. Now, for some people that works just fine, but for some of us, it didn't work at all. The human mind actually operates with questions, not statements, but questions. In fact, psychologists call it the embedded presupposition factor of the brain. What that simply means is that when you ask a question, your brain has to search for the answer. So I said, why are we going around making statements we don't believe when the human mind responds automatically to something more powerful? And I said, well, what should we do then? And so I said, well, instead of saying the statement, I am rich, to which your brain says, yeah, right. I said, what would the question be? And then I said, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, for everyone watching, listening to this program, ask yourself that question right now. Why am I so rich? Now, what instantly happens in your brain? Everybody watching, listening to this program can prove it right now to themselves by just asking better questions. So that's what my affirmations method is in a nutshell. It's the process and method of using what you're already doing in your brain, which is asking questions, but instead of asking what I call disempowering questions. See, most human beings are going around asking really disempowering, or I also say lousy questions, right? Like, why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why am I so lonely? Why can't I get a date on Saturday night? Why does nothing ever work out for me? Why is there more month left at the end of the money, right? And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get? Lousy answers, right? And that creates a lousy life. So I said, well, what if we just flip the whole thing around, start asking empowering questions instead of disempowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and create a wonderful life? So standing in the shower, April 1997, I invented this method that we now call the affirmations method. And since that time, over 1 million people around the world and literally over 140 countries around the world are using my affirmations method. And it's really what we call the affirmations revolution.